Hey y'all, it's me, Crimson. How you doing? I'm doing pretty good myself. Finally got my PC set up and I got a new mic, which is why I might sound a little different. And I'm now guessing you're wondering why I'm suddenly doing a review about Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. You know, since we've got stuff like One and Dones, Kingdom Hearts, and Trails to work on. Well, to be honest, I hadn't really planned to, since, like I've stated before, I have many other projects I'm working on and more on the way. But after joining in on a collab with my good friend Mad Kaiser, where I got to talk about how excited I was for the remake, the original game never really was able to leave my head, and as a result, I ended up with the script I'm reading off of now. If you're curious about that video, I'll leave it in the pinned comment below, but that's enough of that. Let's get into why I think Paper Mario Thousand Year Door is an absolute masterpiece of a game. Alrighty then, ladies and gents. To kick this little bad boy off, let's discuss the elephant in the room, shall we? And let's chat about just how damn good this game looks. I've always loved the papercraft aesthetic of the 64 title, so to see it get one of the most impressive glow-ups on the purple lunchbox is a joy to witness. Everything looks so much crisper and more stylish as a result of the stronger hardware. The character models look far more impressive and defined. And the levels, ooh boy, these levels are downright beautiful. Some of these are without a doubt some of the best levels I think I've seen in Nintendo's Mario library. Some of my absolute favorites have to be the Hub World Rogue Town for its lawless wasteland kind of feel. Just gives you that gross griminess that you didn't see in many games on the Nintendo outside of, like, what, Pokemon Coliseum? When are we getting that game again, Game Freak? Glitzville for its bombastic craziness. And of course, the legend himself. And Twilight Town for, well, I mean, come on, just look at it. Beautiful silhouette 2D style, wonderful music, goofy ass 3D pigs. How is it not pure peak? Of course, this charm and style is not just relegated to the levels, as each of Mario's party members have that same energy as well. From the self-confident Goomba Goombarella, to the wannabe hero Koops, to the spunky Yoshi who deserves absolutely no happiness because he's a Yoshi, each of them has enough charm and character for at least two whole party members. Whether they be making jokes or conversing with the main man Mario himself, or just smacking down some fools in combat. Speaking of combat, how about we get into talking about that gameplay of TTYD, because it is glorious. TTYD took the foundation of 64's Paper Mario and improved upon them in some of the most entertaining ways possible. First and foremost is how they improved every battle itself by making them all act out like they're in a stage play, which actively helps it stand out considering that while 64's combat is very fun, it's basically just Mario RPG combat but with a 2D plane with a few minor additions. The badges and level up style were honestly more memorable than any fight you had. But thanks to the stage play style of Thousand Year Door, every battle is just 10 times more unique. You now no longer just had to focus on your opponent. You now had to pay attention to things like stage hazards, so you didn't take any extra damage, along with paying attention to the hecklers who want to throw shit at you in the audience. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention you have an audience now? Yeah, you see, in accordance to how having a stage, as you would expect, there's now going to be an audience there, and the audience actively takes a role in battle for one. As I said before, they will heckle you by trying to throw things at you, but you can interfere and attack them, knocking them out of the stage as a result, and you get cheers from the crowd, which in turn help you build up star points so you can use your special moves that you get from collecting the 7 stars. And honestly, I love this mechanic, as it has a lot more visual flair and focus to battles, which helps improve upon the combat. It really does feel like the devs found a way to genuinely evolve the gameplay from 64. And speaking of evolutions to the gameplay, how about we talk about how much they change up the paper mechanic? You see, in 64, the paper aesthetic was just kind of more of a set piece than anything else. It really didn't have much use other than artistic style and maybe a couple of jokes attached to it. But in Thousand Year Door, that is actively utilized in very unique ways, as Mario continuously gets cursed throughout the playthroughs by the same guy over and over again, because I guess Mario has never really learned, not to be fooled more than once. And every curse basically forces him to go through body horror by manipulating his body into various paper aesthetic. For example, he turns into a paper plane, he rolls himself up to move faster, you can become a boat, and honestly, these are probably some of the most painful shit he's ever gone through in his life. Or maybe he really doesn't feel anything, I don't know. He is made of paper. This is getting a lot darker than I thought it would. Let's just move on and leave those questions for later. Anyways, I honestly love this change, as it actively does make the world feel like it's made of paper, and give us a lot more to the term Paper Mario than just using it as aesthetic. Plus, this whole paper transformation thing comes in handy a lot when you need to go to new areas of the game, or find yourself some upgrades for your character so you can boost their damage and get them new abilities, in order to help Mario on his quest to get the 7 stars. Speaking of said 7 stars, how about we actually start talking about the story? We're like, what, fucking 4 minutes in? Let's get back to it. So the story kicks off as you might expect. Mario gets a letter from Princess Peach in the form of an invite to a city called Rogueport, only for Mario to discover she's been kidnapped once again. But not my Bowser, no. He hasn't captured her this time. He's off doing his own thing. No, the enemies you're facing this time are the dastardly X-Nauts, alien-like beings with advanced technology and a strange agenda. As a result, Mario must now travel the world to find them, and by doing so, comes across a mysterious door that may or may not lead to the princess he's seeking. But it also may hold something far darker and even more dangerous than he expected. Meanwhile, Peach forms a bond with the database system, Tech XX, the only comfort she has in this cold prison until Mario finishes his journey to find her, or until he gets done becoming the next WWE champion, whatever comes first. As Peach slowly teaches the database what it truly means to be human, and is easily one of the most emotional parts of the entire game. That I will not be telling you anything about because god damn it, the TEC stuff hits so much fucking harder if you go in blind. Trust me, this is one of the only times I've ever cried at a Mario game. You need to experience this blind. And that's it for my pros. So let's go ahead and move on to cons now, shall we? Alright, to be totally honest, when it comes to Thousand Year Door, I'm gonna be real here, there aren't really a lot of problems with it. The developers really knew what they wanted to do with this title, and as a result, pumped out one hell of a stellar Mario RPG. If I'm being honest, the main complaints come more from the side content of this game than the main game itself. Main game has some issues, but I'd like to start with the side content instead. First and foremost, the Trouble Center. Now, on paper, the Trouble Center, it actually sounds like a pretty good idea. Giving you the option of side quest is always an interesting way of having you spend more time in the game's world. Of course, that interest is, ruined once you realize how pretty much all of them are just tedious fetch quests. And they're not even like fun tedious, like the kind where you have that goofy character to help lighten the mood at the very least. No, none of that. Just go get thing for a mediocre reward. That's all it is. That's the Trouble Center. The only one I would even recommend you doing is the quest Elusive Badge, as it's the only quest in the game to net you a worthy reward. That reward being a new party member in the form of badge hunter Miss Mouse, who's actually a decent healer and can help you earn rare badges. So at least there's that, I guess. The other issue with side content is the infamous Pit of 100 Trials, which, okay, it's not as bad as the Trouble Center is, as its rewards are far better and more consistent, but I also don't think it was necessary to make it 100. Having it be a 50 feels like it would have been, a lot better. If I'm being real here, that's much more my dislike of overly long side contents, as I feel like it's just boring padding when you could have added something else. And to be honest, that's all the complaints I have about the side content. So what about the main stuff? Well, for the most part, I don't have many complaints. The only real issues are in Chapter 5 and the last chapter, each of which suffer from some pacing issues. For Chapter 5, the level turns Mario into basically a shadow and he loses his party members. And as a result, about 80% of the level is filled with a lot of tedious backtracking and some pretty annoying puzzles. And in the final chapter, you have to go find this old bomb named General White. which ends up sending you on a long chase throughout the entire world. An idea that, at first, feels like a cool little victory lap of sorts, only for it to drag on way longer than necessary. I get what they were going for, but man, it does not work well in execution, like, at all. And turns what should have been a final hurrah before going into battle into a tedious slog that grinds the finale's pacing to an abrupt halt in the worst way possible. And last but not least, kinda disappointed they don't let you play with Luigi. You see, throughout the entire game, you keep running into him, and every time you meet him, he tells you a story about what he's been up to. And honestly, they are pretty interesting, and I think it's kind of a missed opportunity to not let you play through them as like an unlockable. You got to play as Bowser, and that was cool, I guess, but man, it would have been interesting if you could have unlocked some Luigi-based stuff. Hopefully in the remake they add that. That'd be really cool. And honestly, that's it. I've got no other complaints. Thousand Year Door is a very well-made game, so how about we move on to my final thoughts? While I'm fully willing to admit that I think Thousand Year Door has a couple of missteps along the way, it is still without a doubt an absolute masterpiece of a title, and definitely my favorite game on the Purple Lunchbox even to this day, which is why my final rating for this game is a definitive 9.5 out of 10. A must-play for everybody who's interested, and I cannot wait to play the remake. Who knows, maybe I'll make a review of that one as well. That's all for this video, folks. Thank you very much for sticking with me. If you enjoyed this, like and sub down below for more JRPG content, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your year. I'll see you next year for more quality content. That's all, folks, and thanks again for listening. See you all in 2024.